I still remember the glow of her phone that night, the faint blue light flickering across her face while she lay beside me. It was 12:43 a.m. Our bedroom was silent, except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the sound of her thumbs tapping. Rhythmic, careful, almost like she was afraid to wake me, but I wasn't asleep. I'd been pretending for weeks. Her name is Nora. We've been married for 9 years, a quiet suburban marriage. Our house sits near the end of a cul-de-sac, with ivy climbing the fence and a porch light that buzzes faintly when it rains. It used to be a warm place. Now it feels airless. That night, the silence between us wasn't new, but the tension in it was. I rolled over slightly, careful not to startle her, and saw the screen reflected in her eyes. Her lips curled, that tiny, secret smile I hadn't seen in months, not since before things began to slip, the kind of smile she used to give me. I heard the vibration, a soft buzz, and her quick inhale, then a faint whisper. "Stop, not now." A pause, then another message, this one shorter. She turned the phone face down. I didn't ask who it was, because I already knew. You don't need names when betrayal lives in the tone of silence. For months, Nora had been drifting. Not loudly, not cruelly, just quietly gone. The way sunlight fades from a room slowly, invisibly, until you realize you've been sitting in the dark. I'd tell her about my day, she'd nod, half listening. We'd eat dinner together, two strangers sharing a table built for love. The wine glasses stayed full longer than they used to. Her laughter became polite. And her goodnight kisses were rehearsed. I'd convinced myself it was stress, work, hormones, life, anything but another man, but truth doesn't whisper. It waits, and then it screams in moments like that one, when your wife texts someone else in the bed you built together. I wanted to confront her, to snatch the phone, demand answers, break the silence open, but something held me back, pride maybe, or fear of hearing confirmation in her eyes, so I stayed still. Listening to her breathe beside me, the rhythm of someone whose heart was somewhere else. At 1:08, she finally sighed, locked her phone, and turned toward me. Her arm brushed mine. Her skin was cold. "Good night," she whispered. I didn't reply. The clock ticked through the darkness, marking time for a marriage that had already ended. Morning light crawled across the floorboards, pale and tired. Nora was in the kitchen, humming softly. She always hummed when she was nervous, a habit from childhood, she once told me. The smell of coffee filled the air, but it didn't taste the same. Maybe it was just me. Maybe everything was different now. She smiled when I entered. "Morning." Her voice was soft, controlled, like she was rehearsing normalcy. I looked at her, really looked. The loose bun, the sweater I'd bought her last winter, the faint shimmer of guilt she tried to hide behind routine. I wanted to ask, who was it last night? But instead I said, "Did you sleep well?" She hesitated, a flicker, then nodded. Yeah, I did." And that was the moment I decided I wouldn't confront her, not yet. If Betrayal was a play, I wanted to see the whole performance before the curtain fell. So I watched, for days. She became careful, too careful, kept her phone face down, changed her passwords. Started taking evening walks that lasted an hour longer than before. I followed once, not far, just enough to see her turn the corner near the park, where a black car waited. The driver stepped out tall, clean-cut, his hand brushing hers before they disappeared into the shadows. That was all I needed. No shouting, no drama, just truth, heavy and undeniable. I walked back home under the soft drizzle that had begun to fall. Rain against the pavement sounded like applause for the end of something sacred. When she came home later, soaked and shivering, I had dinner waiting, candlelight, her favorite dish, even the old playlist she used to love. She looked startled, almost guilty. "What's this for?" she asked. I smiled. "Just us, it's been a while." She smiled back, nervous, fragile. We ate mostly in silence. Every bite was heavy with things unspoken. Her phone buzzed twice during the meal. She ignored it, pretended to focus on me, and for the first time I realized she was afraid, not of me, but of what I might already know. After dinner, she went to shower. I sat in the living room, listening to the water run. The soft rush of it behind the bathroom door, it sounded like a confession she didn't want to speak. On the coffee table lay her phone, unlocked, careless. I didn't open the messages. I just stared at the glowing screen, where a single notification preview read, "Last night was perfect. I can still smell you." My chest tightened, but not in shock, in something colder, resignation. The water stopped, footsteps. Her humming again. I turned off the lamp and let the room fall into darkness. By the time she stepped out, wrapped in a towel, I was already in bed, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. She stood there for a moment, just breathing. Then quietly, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I don't know if she meant it for me or for herself, but I knew in that whisper the war inside her had begun, and I wouldn't stop it, because sometimes the most brutal revenge is in silence. Days turned into weeks, and the house felt heavier. Rooms once warm with laughter now absorbed every footstep, every sigh. The hum of the fridge, once background noise, became a reminder of emptiness. Even the curtains seemed to sag with the weight of unspoken truths. Nora moved around the apartment with care, not the casual ease of someone at home, but the precision of someone tiptoeing on fragile ground. I followed the rhythm of her presence like a ghost following a shadow, silent, unseen, letting her every choice speak louder than words. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't confront her, because revenge is rarely about shouting. It is about letting someone feel, in every fiber of their being, the absence they created. At night, I would lie awake and imagine the messages, the texts she thought I didn't see, her thumb hovering over words she didn't want me to read. I could hear him in my mind, that other man, every smile she gave him, every secret laugh she reserved for him, and I let it sit there, festering in the quiet corners of my heart. The city around us carried on, unaware of the private war unfolding behind the curtains of our apartment. Streetlights flickered over puddles from a recent rain, turning everything silver and blurry. I would watch from the window, the dim reflection of myself mingling with the empty streets, and feel the ache of betrayal sharpen. Nora left her phone on the counter one morning, a slip. The faint buzz of a new message broke the fragile stillness of the kitchen. I didn't touch it. I only watched as her hand hovered above the screen, trembling for reasons I knew, and then withdrew. Her eyes met mine. For the first time, I saw something like fear there, not for herself, but for what I had become, or perhaps fear of the silent storm she had awakened. Weeks later, a mutual friend mentioned casually, as if it were nothing, that Nora had been seeing someone new. No name. No details, just a casual shrug that felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I felt no anger, only a hollow curiosity. And then, a quiet plan began to form. If she wanted to betray me, let her taste the weight of her choices in the absence I created. No shouting, no confrontation, no public humiliation, just quiet withdrawal. Invisible walls built around her, until the echo of her laughter sounded hollow even to herself. I began leaving small traces of my awareness. A glance at her phone left unlocked. A book she thought I hadn't read, now bookmarked with a note only I could understand. A subtle absence at her side during the moments she expected me. Each act, small and deliberate, a shadow of what I felt inside. The apartment became our stage. Every room, every object, carefully placed to reflect what she had lost. The half-empty wine glass on the counter, the untouched dessert on the table, the music I let drift from the speakers, all reminders that she had violated a sacred trust. And then I began to see him in glimpses. Not in person, never that, but in evidence. A jacket she left on the back of a chair, faint cologne lingering in the hallway, her sudden pauses in conversation, the flicker of guilt in her eyes. I didn't ask, I didn't need to. His presence was everywhere in absence. She started apologizing quietly, almost reflexively, not to me, but to herself. I could feel her unraveling in small ways. The way she fumbled cups of coffee, the way she avoided eye contact at dinner, the way her laughter no longer reached her eyes. One evening, I found myself standing by the window as rain began to fall. The droplets traced the glass in slow rivers, each one mirroring the path of tears I hadn't shed. Nora stood in the doorway, her hair damp, her sweater sticking to her skin. She didn't speak, she didn't move. And for the first time, I let her feel my presence without touching, without explaining. I let her feel the absence of the love she had taken for granted. Her breath caught in the silence. She looked small, fragile, haunted. Exactly as I wanted her to feel, not humiliated, not shamed, but confronted by the weight of her own choices. A week later, a message arrived on my phone. No name, no greeting, just a single line. I can't stop thinking about you. I read it twice, then I left it there, unanswered. I could have replied. I could have screamed, demanded, confronted. But silence, quiet, patient, unyielding silence, was more powerful. She noticed the change, of course. She tried subtly, carefully, to reclaim the warmth I had once given her. But warmth cannot be forced. It cannot be faked. It must be earned, and she had spent years wasting the currency of trust. The apartment grew colder, not because of the weather, but because of my deliberate absence. Every sound she made echoed too loudly in rooms once filled with love. The humming she used to do when nervous became a sound I recorded in memory, a gentle reminder of fragility and regret. Then one afternoon I saw him, not in person but in the reflection of the hallway mirror, a man waiting outside our building, tapping on his phone. Nora appeared beside him, unaware that I was watching from the second-floor window. Her hand brushed his, a small casual touch that felt like a betrayal carved in stone. I didn't move. I didn't react. I let them exist in that small bubble of fleeting happiness, knowing it would shatter. Because shadows have a way of following light, and silence has a way of reaching inside and haunting you. That night, Nora came home and sat across from me at the kitchen table. The rain outside painted the windows in streaks of silver. She looked exhausted, almost defeated. She started, then paused. Her words trailed off, lost in the hum of the fridge. I only looked at her. Nothing more, no accusation. No anger, just the quiet intensity of someone who knew everything and would let her feel it in every glance, every pause, every heartbeat. And in that silence, the first crack appeared. Not in me, in her. I could see it. The small tremor in her hands, the way her eyes darted, searching for reassurance that I wouldn't give. Her guilt, her fear, her awareness of the absence she had created, it all pressed down like the rain against the window pane. I didn't speak, I let her feel the weight of what she had done, because sometimes revenge is not fire. It is water, slow, persistent, impossible to escape, and she was drowning in it. The door creaked before I even heard her footsteps. It was late evening, that gray, fading light that seeps through the curtains and turns the room into a muted memory. She was standing there, shoulders hunched, hair damp, eyes heavy. Nora. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I let her presence fill the apartment, small, hesitant, fragile. I came back, she said softly, almost whispering. Her voice trembled in a way that made every word feel like an apology she could not finish. Her gaze flicked to the couch, the kitchen counter, the traces of absence I had left deliberately for her to notice. She was seeing finally the echoes of her own choices. I stayed silent, just nodded, no words. Her heart needed to speak before mine did. I've been thinking, about us, about everything. She took a step forward, then another, unsure if the ground beneath her was real or just a reflection of guilt. Her hands twisted in front of her, fingers pulling at the hem of her sweater. I don't know if I can fix this. I don't even know if I should. I let her trail off. No interruptions, no reassurances, just the weight of my presence. She looked at the kitchen table, where the small remnants of absence waited like tiny accusations. The half-empty wine glass, the untouched dessert, the faint scent of lavender I had left on a folded towel, a scent she once loved but now smelled like regret. I made a mistake, she whispered finally, eyes brimming. More than one, and I. Her voice caught, crumbling into silence. I hurt you, I hurt us. I inhaled slowly. The years, the betrayal, the nights spent pretending to sleep while the world collapsed beside me, all pressed into the silence between us. Her confession hung in the air like smoke. You can say it, I finally said quietly, not angry. Not accusatory, just a truth she needed to hear. I'm sorry, she repeated, voice breaking. I never meant, I never wanted to. I let her struggle in the words, letting her guilt settle around her like a cloak. No quick forgiveness. No rescue, just the raw, quiet reality of what she had done. She sank into the armchair, head in her hands, shoulders shaking. I sat across from her, not reaching, not offering comfort, just watching. Her remorse was vivid, palpable, it made the air thick, and I let her feel every ounce of it. I can't stop thinking about him, she confessed finally, voice low, trembling. And I hate myself for it. I hate myself for betraying you. For betraying everything we built. I nodded slowly, no words of reassurance, no softening, just the quiet power of presence, letting her confront the damage she had done. You can stay, but just for tonight, I said finally. My voice was soft, even, a line that hung between us, fragile and tense. She blinked, relief and shame mingling in her eyes. It was not forgiveness, it was a temporary truce, and in that truce she began to understand the weight of absence. She moved slowly to the bedroom, careful not to brush my hand. I stayed where I was, the apartment quiet, shadows stretching across the walls. I could hear her soft breathing, uneven, fragile. A reminder that guilt is a living thing. It breathes, it moves, it cannot be escaped. I remembered every laugh she had shared with him, every glance she had thought was private. I remembered the nights she whispered to her phone while pretending to sleep, and I let those memories sit in the silence like stones in a still pond. Hours passed. The city outside grew dark. Streetlights flickered in the rain-soaked streets. And she slept, exhausted from the weight of her own conscience. I didn't touch her. I didn't comfort her. Because sometimes the most brutal lesson is the one learned in quiet reflection. Morning came slowly, pale and gray. Her hand brushed mine as she passed into the kitchen, almost accidentally. I noticed. Not a word, not a complaint, just observation. She poured coffee silently, stirring it slowly, her gaze fixed on the counter. And I realized she was beginning to feel the full gravity of what she had lost. Not just me, not just our marriage, but the version of herself that could never betray so completely. I let her sit there for a long moment. The weight of my presence, the absence of comfort, the unspoken understanding of what had been broken, all of it pressing on her. And I knew in that moment she would never forget this feeling. Quiet, haunting, real. Because revenge, I had learned, is not fire or fury. It is patience. It is restraint. It is allowing someone to drown in the realization of their own choices. And she was drowning, finally. Morning arrived slow and gray. Sunlight seeped through the curtains, soft and pale, brushing the apartment with quiet light. The city outside hummed with life, cars, footsteps, distant voices, but inside there was only stillness. Nora was in the kitchen, her movements careful, deliberate. I watched her from the living room, a cup of coffee warming my hands, feeling the finality of what had been and what could no longer be. The scent of her perfume lingered faintly in the air, a ghost of memories that were once ours. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The weight of the last weeks, the tension of every silent glance, every unspoken thought hung between us, heavier than words. I could see the toll it had taken on her, the fragility, the haunted eyes, the trembling hands, and I knew she understood now, the depth of the betrayal, the gravity of absence. She turned toward me finally, a silent question in her eyes. I held her gaze without looking away. No anger, no pleading, just quiet, unwavering presence. She began, faltering. I don't know if I can fix this, or if you'd even want me to. I shook my head slowly. Some things can't be fixed, I said, voice soft. Some things are meant to be felt, remembered, so we don't forget what we are capable of. Her lips pressed together, a tear slipped, then another. She looked small, fragile in the way only someone facing the full weight of regret can. I stood and walked toward her, not to hold her, not to comfort her, but to close the distance between us in a gesture of finality. Go, I said, her eyes widened. Not like this, she whispered. Like this is the only way, I said, because love and pain can exist without reconciliation. They can coexist in silence, in memory, in what remains of who we once were. She lowered her gaze, finally understanding. The apartment, the city, the gray morning, all witnesses to a truth too large for forgiveness. She left the room slowly, footsteps soft against the hardwood floors. I stayed behind, watching, breathing, feeling the absence she created settle around me. The front door closed quietly, and then silence. I sat on the couch, coffee cooling in my hands. The apartment was still, empty, quiet. I thought of all the mornings we had shared, the laughter, the whispered secrets, the stolen glances across dinner tables and living rooms. And I let them go one by one, like leaves falling into a river, carried away into the current of memory. The revenge was complete, not loud, not public, not dramatic, just quiet, haunting, psychological. She had suffered. Not in anger, not in fury, but in understanding. She had felt in every fiber of her being the weight of what she had taken from me and what she could never reclaim, and I had survived. I had not shouted, not begged, not cried out in despair. I had remained steady, dignified, quiet. Sometimes letting go is the most profound act of strength. Sometimes it is the cruelest gift. I poured the last sip of coffee into the sink. The sunlight touched the counter, warm and gentle. The apartment felt empty but free, and I realized finally that I could breathe again. She left twice, once with him, and once when I finally let her go. And in that letting go, I found something I hadn't felt in years, peace. Something I hadn't felt in years, peace.